Employees at the SABC are threatening strike action and a complete blackout if the broadcaster's management and board do not revoke the retrenchment process already underway. The board and management will meet with the Deputy and Minister of Communications and the Portfolio Committee. They did meet them, I should say, yesterday to explain the logic behind their decision to issue the Section 189 retrenchment letters to employees. During an interview with the SABC, ANC Secretary-General Magashule categorically stated the ruling party, including the Communications Minister, is against the retrenchment process. The Deputy Communications Minister, Kekana, joins us now. Deputy Minister, thank you very, very much for talking to us this morning.
Good morning, Leanne, and good morning to your viewers.
Deputy Minister, can you give us a little bit more clarity as to where the department currently sits in this dilemma and how you think the situation could and should be resolved?
Thank you, Leanne. You will remember that the situation in the SABC has been a protracted one. Now, one of the things that we reported and jointly with the SABC, ICASA and Centec to the Portfolio Committee was that, yes, the signal distribution is very costly. It's one of the cost drivers. Yes, the issue of labor cost is also the biggest challenge. And one of the things that we also said was the regulatory framework is also outdated, including the amendment of the Broadcasting Act, and that's why you see even the current audio and audiovisual white paper being in the public domain. The other issue was to also say the licensing regime is a challenge because today we cannot only talk about TV licenses, we should also consider the new OTT and expanded use of new devices beyond the TV. So it also says, as we deal with the audio and audiovisual white paper, including the amendment of the Act, we should also get a new definition of the TV license and how we're going to deal with it. And as I want to borrow from the view that Professor Justin also said, that maybe we may call it a public media levy. And it's some of the things that we have been working around. Now, what Centec did was to look at how can they, together with the SABC, look at the signal distribution. And a case was made by the SABC to Centec that in Johannesburg, because it's congested, the cost of signal distribution is low. But in far-flung rural areas, the cost of signal distribution become expensive. And that is why the SABC now says, can't we look at the 60-40%, 60 DTT and 40 DTH, use where the areas are a bit scattered and so on, use other means than the DTT. And that has implications on the current policy. As we look at what the policy says on DTT and on DTH, the 85 and 15% allocation. So those are some of the things that we look at. So it means we should look at policy review. We should look at the must carry, must pay rule and try to engage all those who are using the SABC platform. Our sister companies, your MultiChoice, your ETV, have to come on board to say, now this rule, it's draining the SABC. Yeah. How do we come together and make sure that certain things are
okay? And we understand these are plans and issues that obviously need to be addressed. These are things that have been spoken about for such a long time. We're still waiting for resolutions and all of these kind of things. But let's talk about what's happening at the SABC at the moment. I mean, the reality is we saw the results coming out, and the bottom line is that the SABC is insolvent. And we are seeing and we have heard from the ruling party and from government that they stand with us. They're against the retrenchment process. But there's nothing coming forward from government to say, here is a bailout, here is how we can assist you. Is there any talk of that? Is that going to happen, or is that completely off the cards?
The bailout was done, and this is one of the initiatives that we did as a shareholder to make sure that Treasury comes into the party and deal with that. The conditionalities of the bailout, one part of the things that we are addressing on some of the cost drivers that the SABC has put forward is to deal with some of the conditions that the Treasury gave. The pertinent issue at hand is the retrenchment that is on the table. Yeah. We are saying to the SABC, go through a process. See if you can go through a process. And that's what we agreed with them to say. Let's look at the options before we arrive to retrenchments. There may be people who are just on the verge of going on pension. There may be those who want a severance package. There may be all those. Let's engage all these people and look at whether this natural attrition cannot assist us to mitigate on some of the things that affect us. So that even when we are convinced that now we have this pool that cannot be absorbed, that cannot be taken anyway, what then the shareholder would do is to look even amongst our entities to say, how then do we deal with some of the pool of members that are here that needs to be absorbed, so that when we arrive at the last resort of retrenchment, we shall have explored all avenues. So we requested the board to go back, and that's why you see them going to sit together today to look at other options other than retrenchment, which they must put on the table. We are mindful of the fact that finances are not on very, very palatable, but we really have to look at the retrenchment as being the last resort.
We see what you're saying, but one of the biggest criticisms as well is the fact that the SABC is management heavy, that the structure at the SABC is just not working. Now, in terms of, I mean, we were hearing that the salary bill for top management is sitting at around 41 million rand. Now, it's always the people at the bottom that are the ones that start getting chopped first. We've heard that, of course, these retrenchments are happening across the board, but are you advising in any way on an advisory level and working with the SABC board? Because I know that you are quick to blame the SABC board for not doing a good job, but are you working with them in any way? Or are you able to work with them?
As the shareholder, we have never blamed the SABC in any way. We are carrying this burden together and working along together. And one of the things that we're doing is to make sure that we give them support and assist them on some of the things that they have to do without interfering with their fiduciary duties. Now, it is true. That's why we are saying, look at the totality of issues and not just go to provinces and deal with some of these things in a way that is being dealt with. I mean, sitting here as the Deputy Minister and the shareholder, one of the things you are saying is the public mandate of the SABC. If we are saying we are rationalizing provinces and we are doing all what we want to do, benchmarking with BBC. BBC has one official language, and that's English. We have 12 official languages, as sign language has been one of them. So how do we make sure that the public mandate of the SABC is not compromised? We have 3 official languages in Limpopo. Yeah. If we are going to say we kill all the producers for Tsonga and Venda, and we only leave a producer for Spedi, what are we saying to the Tsonga and the Pedi speaking languages? And how are we going to make sure that some of the information that people want, the public broadcaster has to inform and educate our people, yet we're killing some of those positions. The option that they should also look at is to say, currently, because some of these positions are bloated, going forward, if Pinky leaves on this position, we are no longer going to advertise. Those are the options that they should also look at to say, in some of the positions that are currently there, Once this person leaves, then it means we kill that position, and then we make sure that we deal with right sizing of the institution,
and
including looking at management.
These are issues. Indeed, and these are issues that are being brought up, and these are the concerns of staff and the concerns of South Africans as well, because, I mean, we're hearing and stories coming in over the last 2 days saying that, you know, within the retrenchment letters that have already been handed out, there are plans to actually do away with some of its regional offices, and that, as you say, languages are going to disappear, and that the whole public mandate of a public broadcaster is being destroyed. What about the public's constitutional right here to be informed, to be educated? Do you believe that the SABC should actually still be of public service or a public broadcaster, or should it just go the route of becoming more commercial? Because at the end of the day, if the funds are not there, the organization cannot work like this.
Leanne, the public broadcaster must still maintain its public money. One of the things that we said, I presented yesterday to the portfolio committee on behalf of the chairman, is to say the unfunded mandate, we now have to look to sit with Treasury and say there are unfunded mandates. I mean, if you look at COVID, the presidential presentation that President was doing to update the citizenry and what ministers are doing and so on, the funerals and all other national events, we must make a case to Treasury and say, let's have seed grant funding for public mandate and ring fence it just for public mandate and make sure that that happens. But also, we should be able to say, having looked at all these things, on the commercial side, how much are we putting for commercial and how much revenue do we get? How much are we putting for public mandate and how much revenue do we get? And if we're saying for public mandate, what is the cost of this public mandate? The money that we are currently giving for public mandate, is it sufficient? No. If it's not sufficient, how much is needed? We need to go to those nitty-gritties and make sure that all those things are transparent. So that when we make a public, I mean, the reason why we're able to get the bailout is because we had to drill down to some of those things. Yeah. And we still can go back to Treasury and say, Treasury, we hear you on the personnel costs. But these are the things that we're doing to make sure that even going forward, we are able to right size certain positions after natural attrition, freeze them or we discontinue them based on duplication or whatever.
So, Minister, I have to unfortunately start wrapping, but you had a meeting with management and the board. This happened on Tuesday evening as well as yesterday. Was there anything achieved? Did the issue of retrenchments, halting the process come up? Because people and staff are still getting letters. It's still going ahead according to what's happening here within the building. And also, did the issue of top management salaries come into play? Because you say that there obviously is to talk to Treasury, find money, but when we look at the breakdown of the amount of costs, there's a big cost going there as well. But perhaps let's just finalize this on those last issues to discuss.
Look, yesterday we spoke, and the day before when we spoke, we said, we hear you on all these things. Give us options. Look at the totality of issues, from top management to the cleaner in the SABC, to say, how do we navigate on some of these things? How do we look at the natural attrition issues and all other things? We'll always advise the SABC. And the message from the board was very clear. The board took a decision, and if minister wants us to go and reconsider, we have to convene another board and look at all what we have said. So we are hopeful that from the engagement of this morning, of today, the SABC will then be able to come back and say, we have pressures, but these are the things and the considerations that we are making. And as I say, retrenchment, it's something that we're not looking forward to.
If the retrenchment process is reversed in any way, people have already received letters to say that they are being retrenched. Can it be reversed?
We will hear from them.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be over.
Deputy Minister, I understand your position. Look, we have got the Chairman of the Board as our guest coming up. Thank you for your time. Deputy Minister of Communications, Pinky Kekana, talking to us about the department's reaction to the SABC's current situation. As you know, they can't necessarily get involved. They can advise, but, you know, the mandate from the department is not necessarily to get involved in the day-to-day runnings of the SABC. And that's where we talk to the board. That'll be happening in just a couple of minutes' time. We need to update you with the news headlines, however. It's just gone 8:30.